What is up, everybody? This is Josh, and with the second stage of the Duelist Cup right around the corner and a new selection pack also being released recently in Master Duel, I figured it was a great time to give you guys a little bit of a discussion on the Master Duel metagame / tier list video. I can't include every single deck, unfortunately, but if there is a deck that you guys would really like my opinion on, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer as many as I can, but I am hoping that this is helping you guys prepare for whatever you're trying to do in Master Duel, whether it's ranked or tryharding the second stage of the Duelist Cup or just playing it a little bit for the rewards. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would help me out a lot. Without further ado, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started. Let me start off by saying I do still feel like Tenpai Dragon in Master Duel at the moment is an S tier deck. The deck is very powerful, especially because I feel like the competition for Tenpai is not as strong as it used to be in the TCG, where, you know, decks had access to the Fiendsmith engine that would make their decks more resilient to hand traps and also enable them to summon Caesar, which is something that is just not possible in Master Duel. Even the quote-unquote full power Yubel boards are like completely breakable by Tenpai. In regards to the Duelist Cup second stage, it's just also a very efficient deck in terms of your time, right? Like, I would not be surprised if Tenpai ends up winning the Duelist Cup, not with the highest win rate, but simply with the highest play rate in terms of games. Of course, at the very high level, there's a chance that people will counter Tenpai, and so at that point, maybe if you start noticing your win rate is getting very close to 50% or maybe even dropping under, then you might want to switch to a different deck. But in my mind, there's no doubt that Tenpai is going to be played a lot during this Duelist Cup and in ranked as well. So I do think Tenpai is an S tier deck and probably is going to be the highest on this list. Ritual Beast losing 50% of your dimension shifters is certainly a problem. I personally wouldn't rate it super high. I think it's like a solid B tier deck. I think Ritual Beast can perform. I think one player made top 10 last season with it, but at the same time, if you're going into the Duelist Cup, Ritual Beast is just like relatively slow as well. Prosperity to 1 also hurts, that is true. Like losing one dimension shifter, losing the prosperity for a little bit of a consistency hit, that is a problem. Branded, I just haven't seen this deck in a while, but I actually don't hate it in Master Duel right now. I do think it goes into the B tier category as well. I think some people might rate it lower than that. I know for some people it's going to be higher than that. I don't think there's a reason to play Branded right now other than like you really like it. And the same is true for Ritual Beast, actually. I think for most decks that I'm going to rate B or lower, it doesn't mean that they're bad decks. It just means that the reason for you to play that deck is not because it's the best, but because you really like it, which means that it's playable, but there's probably better options. And I think that is the case for Branded. It just doesn't feel like it's particularly good at a lot of things. It's not particularly good at going second, even though it's not terrible at it. It's not particularly consistent, even though it's also not inconsistent. It's kind of like the middle of the pack for everything, but I can see some people who really like the deck doing well with it. Snake Eye Fire King, I think, is a deck that's still at least A tier for me. I don't feel comfortable putting it right next to Tenpai. The cool thing about this Duelist Cup is that because I'm going to be streaming it anyways, I don't really have to like hide my deck choice or anything like that. I can be very transparent about what I'm planning to play and what I'm not looking to play. Snake Eye Fire King is a deck that, even though I respect it, I think it's a good deck, I don't consider playing it myself. Tenpai, on the other hand, is a deck that I will have ready in case I ever feel like it's the right call for the situation. Even though it's probably not going to be my main deck to climb with, I do think Tenpai is something that I'll have built just in case I notice people are not paying it enough like respect. Spright, specifically Live Twin Spright, feels like a viable deck right now. You have a huge problem with Maxi. It's one of those decks that doesn't even have a good plan B. Other than that, it's a pretty strong deck going first. It can fit a decent amount of hand traps for going second. Its Tenpai matchup should be fine, unless they have Maxi, of course. But I'm putting it like middle of the pack, B tier, Live Twin Spright, that is. Other Spright variations I haven't really messed around with. Yubel, for me, goes right next to Snake Eye Fire King. I am not sure if it's better or worse. I do think it has a problem where even if you don't get hand trapped and you get to combo, I feel like Tenpai could still win against your board. Like, it's not like the TCG where the Yubel board just auto wins every single time. Like in Master Duel, you're basically ending on Appaloosa, Phantom of Yubel, and Unchained Soul of Rage with the Unchained Trap, which is a good board, but like a Droplet Lightning Storm combination or something like that could definitely kill you right on the spot. I'm not too sure about its Tenpai matchup. In theory, it's like fine because Spirit of Yubel and Nightmare Pain are really annoying cards for Tenpai to deal with. In practice, I just didn't feel like it was that good of a deck right now. Like Snake Eye Fire King and Yubel are both viable decks for going first still, but I'm just not too sure if I'm a huge fan of them myself. You could also do the Artifact Scythe Lock. Yeah, we had a Challenger Cup this past Saturday. There was still a very respectable amount of Yubel and Fire King, but people did not really do the artifact combo in Yubel, where you go Dagda to set Scythe and then pop it on the opponent's turn. Tearlaments, I don't like much at the moment. As long as Kid Kolos is alive, people are going to play this deck, and I do see why. It is kind of fun to just go Gamba, mill 8, feel great. From a competitive standpoint, I don't think Tearlaments has much going for it right now. I feel like it's worth mentioning because I think there's for sure a chance that you go up against it in the Duelist Cup, maybe a couple of times depending on how long you play. I think there's definitely a quality difference between the decks I put into B tier and Tearlament, so I'm not putting it next to them. That's, I think, about it. Centurion, as much as I like this deck, and it's been one of my favorite decks to ladder with in the past, I don't think is that great right now. Maybe even slightly better than Ritual Beast for me personally, but that might be biased because I just like the deck more than Ritual Beast. It struggles a little bit with its ceiling because we don't have the cards yet the deck has in the TCG. Like, we're still missing Chimera, Primus, and Atri, and I think that is a problem. The Centurion White Forest deck, I haven't played myself yet, so I have a hard time really evaluating it with like the toy box cards and stuff like that. From what I've seen though, it is a viable deck, but it has, I think, major issues going second. Going first, it's pretty good. The good thing that right now in Master Duel is that if you're playing against a lot of Tenpai, you have to go second a lot less. So those kind of decks that are so much better going first than they are going second are a little bit more viable than they would normally be. I still don't think White Forest Centurion would make it out of B tier for me. Runick White Forest is without a doubt the best Runick combo deck in Master Duel now. It's definitely better than Runick Naturia or Runick Bestial. That being said, I do think as long as Runick Fountain is limited, there is just too many problems when you're playing Runick combo decks. As much as I love this deck and as much as I would like to tell you that it's like a very good deck, I don't think Runick White Forest goes higher than somewhere in B tier for me. It's definitely possible to climb with it in ranked. Once you're hitting the high levels in the Duelist Cup and you're playing against a lot of high rated opponents, I don't think it's the deck to climb with anymore. You wouldn't play this if you were looking for the best deck with the best chances of doing well. You would be playing this because you like it. And that is why I played it a little bit. I did okay with it, but it is nothing spectacular. The Fossil Dyna is just a placeholder for all kinds of stun. The best version of stun might just be Runick Stun because it has a lot of outs to Lightning Storm. Stun, I think, is a B tier deck simply because it has fast games. You can probably build it so that it beats Tenpai relatively consistently. The other matchups are not going to be great, but if you're seeing a lot of Tenpai on your climb, stun could be an okay option. I have played against one Gimmick Puppet so far, and I was fortunate enough to win the coin flip. I haven't played the deck myself yet. My impression of this deck is that it's thankfully not that good, but once again, take this with a grain of salt because I haven't played the deck myself. I haven't tried to make it work. I do think overall you are way too coin flippy with this deck. Like, I don't see this deck beating any of the decks in the game if it goes second. And then even against Tenpai, yeah, they will let you go first, but their deck typically has like, what, 15 or more hand traps? If you open the field spell, you're immune to some of the hand traps, but still not all of them. You know, there's still Shifter. I'm pretty sure Magnamood is good against it too. Imperm, Drolin Lockbird, like there's a lot of cards I think that people play right now that'll do well against it. This is my guess where I would put it. Here's one of my sleeper picks for the Duelist Cup that I think has more potential than people give it credit for right now, and that is Chimera. I spent the entire stream today laddering to Duelist level 20 with Chimera, and it went pretty smoothly for me. So this is one of the decks that I am personally considering for my own climb for the second stage because I don't want to play Tenpai. I think this deck is better. This might be biased because I'm just kind of sick of playing Fire King, Snake Eye, and Yubel. The matchup against Tenpai should be pretty good because you have Diabels now, and Diabels is really strong against Tenpai because you turn off Droplet, you turn off Hymen, you can hit the field spell with it when they set it, and you even turn off cards like Lightning Storm immediately. Like if they set them and you can hit them, it's really good. I really like Chimera right now. Unfortunately, the same thing kind of goes for Mathmech. I think Mathmech is an incredibly scary deck to go up against, and especially in a format where Tenpai makes you go first. Mathmech just has to be respected. I'm gonna put it in A tier. I think it's a solid option. I've been playing against it a lot, and they've been beating me a lot when they went first. And even going second, you know, it's still the same old concept. Throw 3 hand traps at your opponent and then Activex Circular. As much as I hate it, it's not bad. It's not more popular than most of the other decks I've put into S or A tier, but it's definitely being played. Melodious can either be played as obviously the pure Melodious deck, which I would probably rank in like the lower B tier. It's an okay deck. It's just not better than most other decks. You're not particularly good into Max C. You have a problem with Ash Blossom. You have a couple of really good one-card starters, but also not enough to make the deck really consistent, right? It's just like 3 Ostinato, 3 First Movement Solo, 3 Refrain. Those are your really good one-card starters. If you don't see any of those, or if they get impermed or ashed, then you have a problem. This is just the kind of deck that sometimes you can play through 3 of their hand traps, and sometimes you will pass to a single one or not even play at all. It is worth mentioning though that the Melodious cards as an engine can function in a bunch of different decks. I've seen people play Ostinato and Refrain in, for example, Snake Eyes. Ostinato is like a 1-card Appaloosa and a rank 4, so you can like search Snake Eye Ash and make Appaloosa without normal summoning. I've seen some Pendulum Piles use it. I just wanted people to be aware of it, that Melodious as an engine is pretty strong. As a deck itself, I'd put it like here, maybe slightly better than Spright. Voiceless Voice, I think, is pretty good right now. I think Voiceless Voice is slightly underrated. I think the deck makes really strong board scoring first, especially into Tenpai. The Saravis setup with the Blessing of the Voiceless Voice is really powerful because you're summoning a Saravis that can't be destroyed by battle. Voiceless Voice is definitely A tier. The question is just where exactly would you rank it? I personally could see myself playing Voiceless Voice before I see myself playing Fire King or Yubel. I'm gonna have it built, and I think it's gonna be an option for me. It's not terribly weak to Max C, and I think that is one of the main reasons why I would play it in such a long and grindy tournament, because eliminating that sort of tilting factor of not getting Max Seed or not losing to Max C super hard, I think would be kind of nice. And then we've saved this for last. I'm actually pretty stoked about Labrynth right now. It is also one of the decks that I'm considering to play for the second stage right now, specifically the Cannon Math Lab, because we have just received Simultaneous Equation Cannon. That deck, I've been trying it a little bit, and it seemed very, very powerful, especially because Tenpai is currently the most played deck in Master Duel. It beats Tenpai very consistently. Not all the time. You can lose to it. You know, Tenpai has Lightning Storm. You don't always have an out to it. It happens. But overall, your matchup should be pretty good. And then there's just a couple of other things that go into its favor, right? Like you have no tilt against Max C because you don't really care about it. You should have relatively quick games because you're not performing any crazy combos. Of course, your opponent gets to combo when they go first because you don't play hand traps. But overall, it should be a good time. The only thing is other matchups are not as good. For example, the Furniture Labrynth, which is also something that people play right now because it is good against Tenpai, hooks Trap Labrynth because you just never outgrind it. Decks like Chimera, Voiceless Voice, and Fire King are virtually unbeatable for Trap Lab if they go first. I mean, not every time, but like it's pretty bad. Yubel is beatable, but Mathmech is also pretty hard. So like your Tenpai matchup with Trap Lab is pretty good. Your Yubel matchup is pretty good. The other matchups here in the A tier are pretty coin flippy. If you go first, then it's pretty fine. But if you go second, it's rough. This is my personal tier list for Master Duel at the moment, with like only the most relevant decks in there, right? I'm aware that I've cut a bunch of decks from this discussion because I did want to focus on the Duelist Cup and on the people that are trying to do well in it. If there's anything missing, feel free to let me know in the YouTube comments. I'll try to go over it and answer your questions on where I think your favorite deck ranks at the moment. For anyone preparing for this weekend's Duelist Cup, I hope this was helpful. Best of luck to everybody.